Hey, 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 how is everybody tonight? It is a Saturday night. Saturday is the day of relaxation. Saturday is a day of unwinding. So, thank you guys for being here and supporting Positive Tea with Fee here tonight on our new time, Saturday night at 6:30. And I want to let you guys know how much I appreciate you. Again, I am your host, Felicia Collins Brogy, and I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in and staying here with me. Um, Tonight, we have a very intense, timely topic: success and mental health issues. It's a little bit of a subject that we don't talk about much, a little bit of a subject that, in my opinion, a lot of people shy away from. But I felt like it was something that was very necessary for us to talk about tonight. And it's also something that is very, very dear to my heart. There's so many aspects of this topic that I want to talk about, um, and really just dig into. A lot of us have heard about mental health, even if we don't deal with it personally. We know of someone who has dealt with it or is dealing with it. It's definitely not easy, and it's definitely something that affects so many of us. And it's definitely something that has been swept under the rug so much. In my lifetime alone, I've known several individuals who have dealt with mental health directly or indirectly through someone that they know or love. And it's definitely something that I personally have dealt with as well. Um, with that being said, I know that a lot of you have heard me on the show or in other social media platforms that I'm on discuss the depths of the emotional issues that I experienced as an adolescent, and how those things really affected the growth that I had at one point in my life as a teenager. And a lot of that had to do with some mental health issues that I dealt with in the early part of my life. Of course, mental health is something that is sometimes, um, mental health is something that we sometimes don't deal with because we don't know the importance of it. It's something that gets put on the back burner a lot. I can honestly say, personally, my parents did the best that they could do in helping. A lot of the normal things that we deal with through puberty, adolescence, and every stage of our lives where we're dealing with a different season, sometimes those things can look like mental health issues. Make no mistake about it, there are the normal scheme of things that we deal with in life, but we're going to say that a mental health issue is a consistent, non controlled issue within your mental health that needs to be addressed. I'll say that again. A mental health issue is something that is an issue with your mental health that needs to be addressed. It's a consistent issue. We're not talking about something that may happen as a result of an event, um, or something that may happen once. There are things like trauma that come about because of things that happen, PTSD and things like that that are brought on. But this is going to be something that we're speaking of within the mental health that's a consistent issue. So let's make that clear. Um, a lot of us who do have mental health, we don't really know where to start. The first thing that I want to talk about tonight in dealing with mental health is acceptance. And I feel like acceptance, when it comes to any mental health issue, it is probably one of the most intense. It's intense because we do have the typical, everyday, normal things that we deal with in life. Everybody gets stressed. Everybody gets sad. Everybody gets overjoyed. Everybody gets angry in different aspects during different occasions of their lives. Everyone. And so, with that being said, um, we want to be able to understand when there is an issue. And I will go back to explaining that the consistency of any type of emotion or deep seated mental issue that is abnormal, something that you constantly can't seem to get a hold to, something that you can't seem to have any control over. Um, your emotional health, your mental health, psychological, all of those things are tied in. All of those things are tied in to us as functioning human beings. And so it affects every other aspect of our lives, professionally and personally. And when you get to a point where there is something that doesn't feel like you have control over, nervousness that you can't seem to get a handle on, a lot of anxiety that's heightened. Not talking about a normal stressful day. I'm talking about to the point where you feel like you can't do anything to control it. When you get to the point where your mentality, your emotions, your well being is not stable, and there's no way for you to recognize yourself, be able to control to a certain degree how you deal with things, it's to a point where it is a mental health issue. And it's nothing to be afraid of, it's nothing to be ashamed of. You are not alone. There are a lot of individuals who experience mental health issues, including myself, and you have to be able to say, I'm depressed. I'm sad to the point where it won't stop. I'm stressed to the point where I don't know what's going on, no matter what I say, no matter what I do, no matter how I try to look at things, I'm still feeling this way. And it starts to control other areas of your life. It starts to control the way you see things, the way you see people. And when you feel that something is not quite right, and you don't have a way of controlling it, a way to get a hold of it, a way to understand, you start to not even recognize yourself anymore. So, see, that's what made it so difficult for me and millions of others. When you're in your adolescent period, you have all those hormones, you're going through so many changes in life, you're not completely developed fully as a person. And so during those times in your life where you can't really understand or get a handle on what's going on, it's really confusing. And so that's where my parents had to step in and try their best to help me. So the first thing is understanding that things were not normal, things were not typical. There is an imbalance in you as a person that you have to recognize. And overcoming those things, it's not going to be easy, but it is possible. There are professionals who are available that specialize in recognizing any type of impactful behaviors, emotions, or mental states that are going to develop within you or that have already developed in you that are affecting your quality of life. And by being able to accept those things you're able to get help, you're able to go to places to proceed in a way where someone professional with your well being in mind has the tools, the education, and the understanding to be able to recognize what's normal, what's typical versus what's not. But you have to get to the point first to where you're not scared or hesitant or discouraged in asking for help. And that's not an easy thing to do, but it's necessary. And it's the first step. And although it is one of the most intense of that process, it's going to take you to the next level. And I'm going to tell you personally, when you get to that point, you're able to release so much. You're able to understand you need help. And once you're able to accept that, you're able to go ask, even if it's a PCP or a regular family doctor or even a clinician, or there's so many telehealth venues that are available on social media and virtually, where you're able to get to a point where once you reach out to those professionals, they can kind of take it from there. So be able to get to the point where you're able to overcome any type of hesitation in that situation. And that's going to be the beginning of it all. The second thing, when we're dealing with uh, mental health issues, is going to be treatment. So once you are able to reach out to a professional and they're able to not only recognize but diagnose the specific mental health issue that you're dealing with, they're able to see this is what's going on and this is what we need to do. Now, I'm not going to use the word fix. And as someone who's dealt with depression and anxiety throughout my life, the word fix is not something that I ever like to associate with any type of mental health situation. It gives the impression that there's something quick that you can do and it's gone, it's over with. That's not quite how it works with mental health. Mental health is like a stair step. You reach that certain area of acceptance. Once you've reached that area of acceptance, you get on the next step. That next step is seeking out counsel, seeking out a professional, seeking out someone or someone's, because sometimes it's a group of people, to help you to take it to that next level. You're saying, I don't have control over this. So I am having to go out of my way to go somewhere else to someone who has the answers, someone who's educated, someone who specializes, someone who knows this is what's going to help this person cope. So you go from that step, and then you're stepping to another area of the mental health issue. And that is relying on that professional to do what needs to be done. That's usually going to be coupled with two things: medication of some kind, sometimes more than one medication. And then once you have that on board, cognitive behavior. And that is going to mean that you're reporting to either group therapy or individual therapy or counseling. And that's going to involve you on a regularly um, scheduled commitment of seeing a professional. Um, that could be weekly, could be every 2 weeks, and that could change as the progression of treatment goes. But those things are in place so that you'll have support. So when you think about treatment, don't just think about it as, oh, well, they're just going to put me on medicine. Treatment means so much more than that when it comes to mental health. That is going to be something that will involve what that specific individual needs. For me, that meant therapy. That meant self-development, as I've talked about for a while. That also meant medication. When I was first diagnosed with having some issues that I was dealing with. And so as you progress, the treatment may change, but it's not just about medication. And that is something that is stereotypical, it's very taboo, and it can be very misleading. Mental health is is something that has different dimensions. There's always going to be more than one thing that can help your situation. And it's up to the professionals to form a plan of action, which is what treatment is, a plan of action set in place to cater to your specific mental health needs. It's nothing to be afraid of, it's nothing to be embarrassed about. It's time to break out of these stigmas, these stereotypes, and thrive. Because the longer you allow yourself to feel like an oddball or not human, the longer you're going to go not being able to accept what's going on in a healthy sense and not being able to seek treatment. It's nothing to be ashamed of. There's so many people that deal with this. They don't want to talk about it. They hide behind closed doors. They're embarrassed. They don't want to be judged. At the end of the day, treatment is a professional plan of action for you. And success and mental health issues can dwell in the same place. I am living proof. Treatment is nothing to be ashamed of or afraid of. The next thing we're going to discuss when it comes to success and mental health issues tonight is understanding. And we just touched on that a little bit with around the treatment. You got to understand that not only does accepting your situation, getting treatment for your situation matter, but understanding you're not by yourself. You're not alone. There are other people who deal with the same things that you deal with, whether it's privately or publicly. I was one of the worst at that. I was private, I was in denial, I was ashamed. I dealt with so much of that for so long. But you know what? If I were an alcoholic, I would need treatment. If I had cancer, I would need treatment. If I had COVID-19, I would need treatment. You know, I've had broken bones before. Guess what? I needed treatment. It's nothing to be ashamed of. Mental health is no different than having some other ailment. The only difference is this is catered around your emotions, your mental state, and the way you cope. Oh, I see my husband tuning in tonight live. Thank you so much for supporting me. Mr. Clark Brogy, my husband, thank you for tuning in live and supporting the show. He stood by me through a lot of things that I've had to deal with over the years. We've been there for each other in so many ways. And he knows firsthand the things that I have done to cope over the years. And a lot of times that understanding is not just for us, it's for people who love us as well. It's for people who are around us. It's for people who know what we're going through. It's for people who see the stages, see the changes, see the struggle, see the acceptance, see the aftermath before and during treatment. And that understanding is not just for today and it's not just for tomorrow. It's going to be for the rest of your life. And again, that treatment may change. It may not stay the same. But you know what? All these things are coming together to make you the best you can be. We would not look at a little boy or a little girl that was deaf or missing an arm or missing a leg as something to be shunned. Mental health has been taboo. It's been pushed under the rug. Um, it's not like it used to be that we're filling the asylums, there were so many stigmas, and a lot of those still exist in a lot of ways. And a lot of those are things that we don't want to talk about. But as a society, as a people, as a culture, we've got to stop pushing mental health issues in the closet. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It's nothing to feel like you don't have support, feel like you shouldn't talk about it, feel like you can't talk about it. Part of the reason for talking about it is being able to understand that there's nothing that you have to hold on to by yourself. It's nothing that you have to deal with alone. You never know who else is a mental health victim. You never know who else is seeking treatment. You never know who else is scared, who else is feeling alone, who else, comes from a family that's had to deal with it, who else doesn't know where to turn. You might be able to help somebody by telling your story. You might be able to empower somebody. The suicide rates are really, really high, and they have been since the 80s. But since the pandemic alone, the suicide rates have increased a great deal. And a lot of that has to do with the fear and the stigma surrounding mental health. In Faulkner County alone, there's been at least three suicides that I can think of where the victims weren't even 18 yet. And, mental health plays a huge role in how we're coping with our new normal, how we're coping with support systems virtually, how we're coping with education virtually. And so mental health is something that we need to understand is important, just as important as physical health, just as important as emotional health. They all go hand in hand. And spiritual health, of course, the most important. You know, Prayer is something that is not just for your spiritual health, it's for your mental and emotional health. Prayer works when it comes to mental health. It does. It allows you to be in the safest of spaces. Who better to talk to that's not going to judge you and who loves you unconditionally but our Heavenly Father? And, sometimes just getting it out is what you need, because outside of the treatment that you're getting, outside of the support system that you have and people that love you and people who are close to you, you're also going to need to have your own coping mechanisms that you use. And prayer is definitely on that list. It's definitely been a help for me, you know? And everybody is different. So when you get to a certain point in your treatment, after you've accepted it, and part of that understanding is going to be there when you start using your own individual coping skills, when you're not around your therapist, things that you can do to understand you and your individual situation. And it's going to take you to a new level because you're going to be knowing in that this is how I have to deal with me. Now, those things will evolve and they'll change depending on your situation. And a lot of it will stay the same depending on the individual. But the biggest thing in understanding is knowing that it's not a one size fits all situation. And that's okay. And so, with that being said, the last thing that we're going to talk about tonight concerning success and mental health issues is going to be success despite challenges. And, that's the bottom line of it all. You're going to have to Develop a plan, develop a strategy, even outside of treatment and working with the mental health professional, outside of acceptance, outside of understanding. To develop that strategy for success despite challenges when you're dealing with mental health issues is awareness. And that awareness means that you're going to be willing to stay on top of things. Never put your mental health on the back burner, ever, ever. Your mental health being at its best is just like putting gas in a vehicle. Everything else can be working fine. But if you don't have gasoline in that vehicle, you're not going to get very far. Take care of your mental health. Make it a priority. The second thing with being in a successful environment, being in a successful mindset, despite having all these mental health challenges, creating a positive sense of self in the face of a mental health problem. There's going to be some times that seem almost impossible when you deal with mental health. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And for the rest of your life, you're going to have to find ways to bounce back. Now, you're going to have to be realistic. You know, sometimes there's going to be some damage control that needs to be done depending on what level you're on, what happens, how it happens, you know, all of those things. You know, you can have a really good mapped out plan when you're dealing with a professional. Okay. But you're going to have to give yourself a positive sense of self, because when those times come, it is very, very easy to get discouraged. It's very, very easy to throw in the towel. But by creating that positive sense of self, that positive mindset, you're going to be able to figure out ways to bounce back. And you got to do what works for you. Make positivity the main thing. You always want to be realistic, but positive. And you're still going to be successful if you can do that. Because during those times where your mental health gets the best of you, you're going to have to figure out a way to center yourself again, because you're not always going to be centered. Keep in mind that despite acceptance, despite treatment, despite understanding, you're still going to have those times where the challenges just get to the point where you're like, "Oh my goodness, I've done everything and this is still the situation." And that's the reality of it. But the other side of that is when you get coping skills that may not work and you have those days that just seem impossible, you got to figure out positive ways to center yourself again. And you can do it. Self love is very important in doing so. The third thing that you're going to have to make a priority is engaging in activities that support and promote acceptance. Don't set yourself up for failure. There are certain environments that are negative, and they are committed to misunderstanding your individual battle with the challenges you face in mental health. And it's okay for you to stay out of those areas. It doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you're missing out. It just means that you are mature enough to accept the fact that certain environments are simply not for you and your personal situation. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's not going to be easy, but it's necessary. It's necessary because it's a major way that you can avoid getting yourself in situations that have triggers. Trigger is going to probably be a word that you're going to hear a lot within your treatment of any mental health issue that you may face. You don't want to be in an environment that can provoke a mental health challenge. Try to shield yourself from that as you can. And it takes a special type of acceptance and maturity to be able to realize when certain environments are simply not for you. Certain people may not be for you. Certain situations may not be for you. And that's okay. But recognize those and make it a priority to avoid those activities. And the last thing that's going to really help you to be successful, you can have success despite mental health challenges when you focus on relationships that promote acceptance. You know, try your hardest to be in areas where you know you're going to get support. And if you're not in an area that's supportive, try to stay out of areas that are discouraging. And sometimes that doesn't necessarily even mean directly related to whatever mental health issue you face. It could just simply mean environments that, again, promote trigger happy activities. Just be careful. Love yourself, understand yourself. And just understand that being successful despite challenges is a challenge in itself when you're dealing with mental health issues, but you're worth it and you can get through this and you can have a successful, happy life. I'm living proof of that. Don't be ashamed. Don't feel unworthy. Don't feel embarrassed. And above all, break out of the stigma and thrive. It's not the end of the world. It can be dealt with. And just like cancer, asthma, or any health issue that anyone has ever faced, big or small, there are ways to cope. There are ways to continue on in a journey of your life, and success and mental health issues can remain factors of your life together. Don't ever think otherwise. It's been a struggle for me. Of course, you guys know that I started the 40 till 40 challenge over the weekend. I will be 40 December the 9th. It has been a lot of different stages for me, ups, downs, and everywhere in between. But I am proud to be able to let you guys know that I was able to overcome so much, even dealing with what I've dealt with, how I've dealt with it. And you know what? I'm proud. And so I want to thank you for tuning in tonight. I want to thank you for being with me as we were able to go over this very sensitive subject about success and mental health issues. This is not going to be the last time that this topic comes up on my show. It's something that needs to be talked about. It's something that needs to be put out there. And I'm going to continue to be your advocate. I'm going to continue to be a support system, a resource. I'm still learning. You can learn. We can learn together, you know, and together we can knock down those taboo stereotypes that cause people to think, things that are not positive when it comes to dealing with the struggle. But it can be something that's dealt with the right way, and we can overcome and still be successful despite mental health issues. So thank you for tuning in with me tonight. Thank you for supporting us on our show and being able to tune in for this new time. And I will see you next Saturday at 6:30. Bye.